Good evening, dear students. Today we will discuss assessment of hearing. Till now we have discussed anatomical part of ear, then how sound is conducted from external ear to middle ear, and from there to internal ear, and from internal ear how the nerve impulses or action potentials are conducted in the auditory pathway right through the auditory cortex, where the interpretation of the sound signals takes place. So now it is important for assessment of hearing. So any person who is suffering from hearing loss may come to you, and you have to identify whether which type of hearing loss is this. So we will discuss today how do we assess hearing. So it is, the question must arise in your mind that why do we need test of hearing. So whenever a person is coming to you with complaints, so you have to think that whether this person, whosoever or patient is coming to, his hearing is normal or not, or if the hearing is normal, then you need not to perform the hearing test. But if the hearing is impaired, then we have to know how much is the degree of hearing loss, and by doing test we can assess the hearing loss. Then after assessing the hearing loss, we should know that what type of hearing loss is it. Now, principle of hearing, you know about the bony conduction, you know about the air conduction. So this is the schematic diagram once again, and this is the tympanic membrane. Here this part is the tympanic membrane, and this part is the eardrum or tympanic membrane, where umbo is present. Now to which handle of Malleus is attached, these are the ossicular chain, and this is the oval window. Now for air conduction, you know that sound wave, they strike against this eardrum, and that is conducted from in by the this your ear ossicles to the oval window. So up to this point air is conducted in mechanical form. Now how do bony conduction takes place? If you see the bony conduction, it takes to the bones, that is the vibration of any vibrating object, they are passed through this part and they conduct the sound through the bones to the internal ear. So this is another diagram, a vibrating, this shows a tuning fork which is placed on the mastoid process, which is placed just behind to the ear, and from there the bony part is set into vibration and they conduct the sound waves to the internal ear. And whereas the air conduction tuning fork is placed in front of the external auditory meatus, and from there this sounds, they are conducted by tympanic membrane, ear ossicles to the right through your internal ear, and from there the final common pathway is the same, that is whether bony conduction or the air conduction, the mechanical form of energy is converted into the electrical form by the hair cells, and this is the final common pathway, that is the cochlear nerve, cochlear part of vestibulocochlear nerve, which conducts the impulses to the brain from here to the right through the brain. Now principles of hearing. This table tells us about, if you think that examples of sound pressure levels in relation to the hearing thresholds and pain thresholds in decibel or sounds pressure level. The range of human ears audible sounds goes from 0 decibel sound pressure level, that is the hearing threshold, and to 120 to 140 decibel sound pressure level, that is the pain threshold. So this is the amplitude of sound or loudness of the sound which causes the pain. This is the threshold for pain. If you hear to this much of amplitude voice or sound, then there will be pain in ears, and you can hear at this level also. So source or observing situation and typical sound pressures. If you see, hearing threshold is 0 decibel. It leaves fluttering 20 decibel. Whispers in an ear comprises 30 decibel of amplitude. Normal speech conversation for a participant is 60 decibel, or whispering, that is cars, vehicles, or a close observer, they produce sound at an amplitude of 60 to 100 decibel. Airplane which takes off in the airport, it produces a sound of 120 decibels, and pain threshold is between 120 to 140 decibel, and sounds greater than 140 decibels, they are very dangerous to your ear sounds, so they can lead to hearing loss. Now, various types of hearing loss. So we have studied that sound is conducted in mechanical form, that is so any region which affects this traveling of waves from external ear to middle ear, right up to the this oval window, it leads to conductive hearing loss. So this part signifies the conductive hearing loss. In this diagram, next type of hearing loss is sensory neural hearing loss. So the problem lies in the internal ear. At the same time, person can present with hearing loss who is suffering from both type. So it means there are problems in the external ear or in the middle ear also, as well as there are problem in the internal ear also. So this is this is mixed type of hearing loss. So we have three types of hearing loss depending upon the cause, that is conductive hearing loss, sensory neural hearing loss, or combination of both, that is mixed hearing loss. Now the first part is sensory neural hearing loss. So it occurs as a result of destruction of cochlear or auditory nerve, or the person becomes permanently deaf. So if there is problem occurs at the level of cochlear part of vestibulocochlear nerve, then person is totally deaf, completely deaf. He cannot listen to any kind of sound, whether they comes through the bony part, whether they comes to the air conduction, because the final common pathway is there is problem in this cochlear nerve which is conducting all the nerve impulses to the brain. So it will lead to complete sensory neural hearing loss. It can be of partial type depending upon the lesion where it lies. If the lesion is lying at the level of medulla or trapezoid body or nucleus of lateral lemnicus, where crossing of the fibers takes place, then it will lead to partial sensory neural hearing loss. So it results from the lesion of the cochlea, that is sensory type, and eighth nerve and its central connections, it is neural type. It is of neural type. If the problem is with the sensory organ, that is the cochlea, then it is sensory. If the problem is with the neural type, that is the eighth nerve is damaged, then it is of neural type. The term retrocochlear is used when hearing loss is due to lesions of eighth nerve, and central deafness term is used when it is due to lesions of central auditory connections. Now coming on to the conductive hearing loss. So it occurs because of the destruction of the tympanic membrane, membrane or ossicular chain. So problem lies right from the external ear to the middle ear. So you can think of any cause. Suppose there is any tumor of the external auditory canal, so it will lead to the blockage of the external auditory canal. Suppose there is foreign body or there is impaction of wax, that will lead to non-conduction of the sound waves to the tympanic membrane. So the sound waves will not be effectively transferred to the tympanic membrane. So person will be complaining of hearing loss. So sound can still be heard via bone or ossicular chain. So person will say that I am not able to listen to voice of other person properly, and he can listen, but here that is partial. This is because of the bony conduction. The sounds are reaching to the brain, and but there is hearing loss. Those sounds are conducted by the bony part. So it is caused by any disease process interfering with the conduction of sound from the external ear to the stapediovestibular joint. So this is the stapediovestibular joint. So the problems from external ear to stapediovestibular joint, they lead to conductive hearing loss. So suppose in the middle ear you can think of causes, that is otosclerosis, that is stiffening of the these bones, and there may be fluid in the middle ear, that is the condition is called acute suppurative otitis media and chronic suppurative otitis media, that occurs as a result of blockage of eustachian tube. So as a result, the air gets used up by the mucous membrane of this mucous membrane cells of the middle ear, and a vacuum is created. Then they lead to bacterial infection, and there is immense fluid inside the middle ear. Then there will be occur hearing loss. So these are the few causes of conductive hearing loss. Now mixed hearing loss, that is combination of both, that is conductive and sensory neural deafness when occurs in the same person, then it leads to. So there is ear bone gap indicating conductive element on tuning fork test, and impairment of bone conduction indicating sensory neural loss. So whenever bone conduction loss is there, then we think of sensory neural loss, hearing loss. Now mixed hearing loss is seen in some cases of otosclerosis and chronic suppurative otitis media also. So there is, these are the two conditions where the conductive as well as sensory neural hearing loss occurs. Now severity of hearing loss. Now we have assessed that patient is suffering with hearing loss. So once it is confirmed, now we should know the severity of the hearing loss. So this table shows the hearing loss range. Degree of hearing loss, normal is -10 to 15 decibel. A slight hearing loss, and this is a normal person can listen up to this much level of so this is considered as normal hearing loss. So slight hearing loss, when the hearing range is impaired in the range of 16 decibel to 25 decibel. Mild hearing loss is in between 26 to 40 decibels. Moderate is 41 to 55 decibel. Moderately severe, if a person cannot listen to sounds of amplitude that is 56 decibel to 70 decibel, it means person is suffering moderately severe hearing loss. Now severe hear loss, it occurs in between when the person is still not able to listen to the voice of amplitude that is 71 decibel or 90 decibel, then person is suffering severe hearing loss, and profound is 91 onwards is the profound hearing loss. So this these persons that is moderate, they are having much problem. So we may have to prescribe hearing aids depending upon the type of hearing loss to such patients. Now severity of hearing, in continuation of the previous slide, the ability to understand normal everyday speech at a distance of about 5 feet does not noticeably deteriorate as long as hearing loss does not exceed an average value of 25 decibel at 500,000 and 2000 hertz. So these are the frequencies when when a person listen to these pure tones, if the hearing loss does not exceed this much of level, that is a 25 decibel, then the person's ability to understand normal everyday speech does not impair at about 5 it does not impair. So such person, they appear normal as far as the hearing loss is less than the 25 decibel for these frequencies. Now, what are the causes? So, person has come with complaint of hearing loss. Now, we should know about the think of the causes. What are the so these are the few causes. That is the age. With age, everybody's hearing ability decreases. Why is it so? So, the tiny hairs gets damaged and are less able to respond to sound waves. The hair cells, the stereocilia, they get damaged with the age. So hearing loss can progress over the course of several years. Now, loud noise. Exposure to loud noise damages the hair cells in the cochlea. So loud noise, we should not listen to the music at loud noise. Whenever we listen to the loud noise in our mobile phones, there is a warning comes on your screen that listening to loud noise can impair hearing also. So we should listen to a sound in the preferable range which our ear allows. So infections. During an ear infection, fluid can build up in the middle ear, perforated eardrum. Suppose there is a rupture of the tympanic membrane, then that will lead to conductive type of hair loss. Tumors of, for example, acoustic neuroma or vestibular schwannoma and meningioma, they lead to hearing loss. And trauma injuries such as skull fracture or a punctured eardrum can cause severe hearing loss. Now, medication, there are some medications like streptomycin. These are the some drugs, neomycin, kanamycin. These are the drugs which aminoglycoside class of antibiotics. They lead to hearing loss, and that is sensory neural type of hearing loss. So now the genes, genetic hearing loss often begins with hearing loss diagnosed at the birth. So it can be congenital and sometimes the genetic hearing loss occur at a later stage. Now, assessment of hearing. First of all, we have to examine the ear externally. So there should not be any deformity. So there is an instrument known by the name of otoscope. So initial otoscopic examination through which we can see the tympanic membrane, external auditory canal. So we can check the deformities or foreign bodies or structure of tympanic membrane by otoscopic examination. The next test in this category is speech test, that is whisper test or loud test we can perform on the patient. In Tunifork test we have Raynaud's test, Weber's test and Schwabach test. One more test is in this category, that is absolute bone conduction test. Then we do audiometry also. Once we know the hearing loss, we have to assess the degree of hear loss. So what is the degree of hear loss? So we perform pure tone audiometry on the subject, and we have to prescribe him or her with hearing aids. So this is also helpful in prescribing hearing aids. Now, tympanometry is another way of testing hearing. Brainstem evoked response audiometry is another test, and this one is another test. Auto acoustic emission is the another test. These are the tests which are used by machines, and we can these group of tests, we can test the hearing loss on the patient, and we can detect the person who are coming to you in your OPD for getting hearing loss certificate. So we can identify whether patient is really suffering from hearing loss or he is malingering. So these are the tests by virtue of which we can with the help of these tests we can identify whether a patient is a malinger or not, or he is suffering from a hearing loss. So we have to give the deaf certificate or the disability certificate to a person who is a deserving one. Now, initial otoscopic examination, we perform. This is performed with the handheld otoscope. So this is the otoscope. Now, ear canal and tympanic membrane are observed with the help of this otoscope. Tympanic membrane is seen for light reflection. We check the light reflection by the tympanic membrane, differentiation of its part, and its mobility also. So there is cone of light when we look through this otoscope. There is a bulb inside it, and which throws light on the tympanic membrane, and a cone of light we can observe on this tympanic membrane. Now speech test, these are the tests of assessing the gross hearing loss. So this is the simplest of all. In this, it involves testing ability to hear words without using any visual information. So we ask the person to close his eyes, and then we perform this test. So patient should repeat 5 words spoken loudly at a distance of approximately 5 meters. The whispered voice test involves the tester blocking one of the patient's ears and testing hearing by whispering words at a varying volume. So we pronounce some words which are fixed one at a distance of 5 meters, and then we ask to close the eyes of the patient, as he can tell you from the lip reading also. So it is must, we will ask the person to close his eyes so that he do not interpret your voice by reading your lips. Another test in this category is whisper test, or another test is this ballpoint click test. In this is also for assessing the hearing in small children. We click the pen from various distance, and we ask the subject whether he or she can listen to the clicking sound of the pen. So this is another test for to know about the gross hearing loss. Now next test in this category is tuning fork test. So these are the tuning fork of different frequencies. In like you people use 128, 256 and 512 hertz frequency. So for hearing loss, we hearing test we use a tuning fork of frequency 512 hertz used. So this is the base of the tuning fork, these are the prongs, and this is the handle. So we have to pick this tuning fork with thumb and fingers here, and this is the base of and this is to be strike against the hypothenar eminence of your hand. So this is set into vibration, then this is put either in front of the ear, or it is put on the to test the bony conduction, it is put on the bony part of the ear. So principle of tuning fork test are, that is conductive hearing loss is this, or on otoscopic examination or manual examination we can detect these disorders of conductive hearing loss with the help of the tuning fork test. Now sounds delivered to the ear via air conduction will be attenuated in conductive hearing loss. Whenever there will be a loss, conductive loss, whether there is, you can think of the causes for hearing loss due to air conduction. The person will not be able, if the cause is there, person will not be able to listen to the sound properly of the this tuning fork vibration, that is they are attenuated, they are diminished one, the response to the air conduction. If the sound is delivered to the ear by bone conduction by passing the this otoscopic examination and manual examination, then sound will be heard normally, assuming there is no disorder. So bone conduction is normal in such tests, whereas in sensory neural hearing loss they are free from disorders, and sounds delivered to the ear by bone conduction will also be attenuated. So when the cause is lying at the level of sensory organ or in the nerve, then sounds bony conduction is also impaired, as well as the air conduction is also impaired. Now the first test in this category is Raynaud's test. Now this test compares the level of air conduction with bony conduction of the same ear. So we take a tuning fork and we set into vibration. First the base of the tuning fork is after it is set into vibration, the base of the tuning fork is put on the mastoid process, and person is asked to raise his finger when he is not able to listen the vibrating sounds of the tuning fork. Then he will raise his finger. Once he is not able to listen to the sounds, then we will bring this tuning fork in front of the external auditory meters. Then we will again ask the patient whether he is able or she is able to listen to the vibrating sounds of the tuning fork or not. If he is able to listen, then accordingly we will note down the results. So these are the interpretation when the bony the tuning fork is put on mastoid process. Then the vibrations are conducted by the this bony part of the skull, and they reach to the internal ear, and a person can hear. Then when he is not able to once he is stop listening, he is not able to listen to the vibrating sounds of the tuning fork, then it is put in front of the this ear, external auditory meters. Then he is still able to listen the sounds of the vibrating tuning fork. So normally air conduction is greater than the bony conduction, and this finding is suggestive of normal Raynaud's test. Whenever the air conduction is greater than the bony conduction, the Raynaud's test is called as Raynaud's positive. So it is finding of in a normal person, and such kind of finding also occurs in partial kind of sensory neural hearing loss. A second case occurs when bony person is able to perceive the bony conduction, but he or she is not able to perceive the this vibration of the tuning fork through the external auditory meters, not at all. So this suggests bony conduction is greater than air conduction. So this type of finding in Raynaud's test is recorded as Raynaud's negative, and this suggests of conductive loss. And third part is that when tuning fork is put on the mastoid process, person is not able to listen to the vibration of the tuning fork. Again, when the tuning fork is placed on the that is on the same ear, in front of the ear, then what happens? He is not able to listen. So when this type of finding are there, so then person we conclude that person is suffering from complete sensory neural hearing loss, because the problem lies from the internal ear onward. So this tells you about these are the findings in your patients in Raynaud's test. Now next test in this category is Weber's test. In this test, vibrating tuning fork is placed on the patient forehead and on the middle line. The vibration are transmitted by the bone conduction to cochlea. So when we are placing the tuning fork on the mid of the forehead, or at the vertex, or at the vertex or at the mid of the forehead, then sounds they are conducted by the bone, and they are through that bony conduction we are able to listen to the sounds of the vibrating tuning fork. The person in this test should state if the tone is here in the left ear, right ear, or both ears. So person will say either he can listen to the sound better in one ear, or he can listen to the sound equally in the both ears. So whether it is lateralized to this ear, or it can be lateralized to this ear, or he can perceive the sounds equally in the both ears. So we ask the subject when we put the vibrating tuning fork on the mid of the forehead or on the vertex. So if the sound lateralizes, the patient may have either an ipsilateral conductive hearing loss or a contralateral sensory neural hearing loss. So these are the normal findings when we put the vibrating tuning fork on the vertex of the subject, then if it is lateralized to both ears equally, and it is not lateralized, it is centralized to both ears, the patient perceive the sound equally in both ears, then the person is normal. But if sounds are lateralized to a ear where to the ear in which he is not complaining hearing loss, then he may be suffering with conductive hearing loss. Like the person has come to you that I am not able to listen to sound in this ear. He is complaining to the doctor that I am not able to listen in this ear. But when you perform the conductive this Weber's test, then it is lateralized to this ear. So it means this ear is suffering, the cause is conductive type. If the person is if it is the person is when the vibrating tuning fork is placed on the vertex and it is lateralized to the better ear, the loss was in this ear, he was complaining the hearing loss in this ear, but it is lateralized to the better ear, so it means person is suffering from the sensory neural hearing loss. Another test in this category is Schwabeck test. So it compares the patient's bone conduction to that of the examiners. So in this test we take as that the examiner having normal hearing. So examiner's hearing should be normal. So this is must for this test. If the patient stops hearing before the examiner, this suggests a sensory neural hearing loss. And if the patient hears it longer than the examiner, this suggests a conductive hearing loss. So these are the findings for the Schwabeck test. Similar is the test of the absolute bone conduction test. Similar is the absolute bone conduction test, in which the difference from the Schwabeck test is this: it is performed in the same way. We consider the hearing of the examiner as normal, but the difference between absolute bone conduction test and Schwabeck test is that the external auditory meatus is closed by with the tragus of the external ear, so that the sounds they do not conduct through the external auditory canal. So we check the bony conduction in Schwabeck test as well as in the absolute bone conduction test. So these are the results. If the patient stops hearing before the examiner, we consider that the patient is suffering from sensory neural loss. If the patient hears it longer than the examiner, then we think that he or she is suffering from the conductive type of hearing loss. Now this is a diagram. This is a question for you. That is the comment on the hearing in this case. You can see that the Weber test is equally lateralized to the both ear, and air conduction is greater than bony conduction, and here in the this ear is also air conduction is greater than the bone conduction. So this is the case of a normal person. So positive Raynaud in each ear, that is air conduction is greater. This is Raynaud is positive. Air conduction is greater than bony conduction. So these are the findings of the Raynaud's positive test. So after this, Weber's test is performed, in that the vibrating tuning fork sounds, they are equally lateralized, they are centralized, rather they are centralized. So this is the case which indicates the symmetrical hearing in both ears and normal hearing, or it can be a case of bilaterally equal reduced sensory neural type of hearing loss. So in partial sensory neural hearing loss, we have such Raynaud's positive, but the difference between the air conduction and bony conduction, it tells you about the partial sensory neural hair loss is the finding, or it is the normal finding. So we have to note down the timings in between the air conduction and bony conduction. After the bony conduction, for how much time the person can listen to this air conduction. So this helps in differentiating the normal Raynaud's positive in normal person and in sensory neural hearing loss of person. So this is another case. In both here the Raynaud's test was performed. Air conduction is greater than bony conduction. In this year air conduction is greater than the bony conduction. When this Weber's test was performed, it was lateralized to the left ear. So we can see that the air conduction is greater than the bony conduction. It means there is no conductive type of hearing loss. Here is also no conductive type of hearing loss. So it is lateralized to this ear. So maybe person is suffering from sensory neural type of hearing loss in the right ear. So positive Raynaud test, these are the findings on the both sides, and the Weber's is referred to the left ear, so indicating sensory neural deafness in the right ear. So this is how you can interpret your results by performing the Raynaud's test and Weber's test. You can make out whether the person is suffering from sensory neural hearing loss or he or she is suffering from the conductive type of hearing loss. But these tuning fork tests, they do not tell you about the degree of hearing loss. So to know the degree of hearing loss, we have to perform the audiometry, which is the next test in this category. Suppose this is the another case. In this case you can see bony conduction is greater than airy conduction. So this suggests in this ear there is conductive type of hearing loss, and in this ear air conduction is greater than the bony conduction. So after this test, Weber's test was performed. It is lateralized to the conductive type of hearing loss. So this suggests conductive type of hearing loss. So this the findings that the right ear is having conductive type of hearing loss. So Raynaud's test is negative on the right side, positive on the left, and Weber's test is referred to the right ear, indicating conductive deafness in the right ear. So these are the few cases, and you can perform more and more cases by performing these tuning fork tests at your home. Now tuning fork tests are best performed with, this is sorry, I have written it wrong, with 512 Hertz tuning fork frequency. And non-lateralized Weber test always indicates normal hearing. So whenever we perform the Weber's test, if it is normally lateralized to the both ears, it is centralized, not lateralized. If it is centralized to both ears, that is person perceive the sounds in both ears normally, then it is it indicates normal hearing. Now negative Raynaud right ear and Weber test lateralized to right ear indicates conductive hearing loss of right ear. So we have done already the exercise also. So this tells you about this thing. In case of ruptured tympanic membrane, bone conduction will be greater than the air conduction, because there is the problem with the tympanic membrane which sets the ear ossicles into vibration, so that lead to hearing loss which is of conductive type. Now tuning fork test summary: Weber's test lateralized and Raynaud's test on the lateralized side. If on the lateralized side, if it is Raynaud's test is on the lateralized side, if it is positive, then the loss of hearing is sensory neural on the non-lateralized side. And if the on the ear where the Weber test was lateralized, if Raynaud's test is negative, then this tells you about conductive hearing loss on the lateralized side. Now if the Weber's test is midline, it means the person has got normal ear, but when it is combined with the Raynaud's test findings on both the ears, then if the Raynaud's test is negative, then bilateral symmetrical conductive hearing loss can be the finding. If Raynaud's test is positive on both sides, then bilateral symmetrical sensory neural type of hearing loss can also be there. So there are different permutation and combination. You have to imply your IQ, and you have to come to a conclusion that which type of hearing loss a person is suffering from. So this is the exercise you can do. You can interpret this slide by going through it again. Now audiometry. Audiometry is performed to detect the degree of hear loss. So in this audiometry, we have a yeah, device, that is the earphone, through which we this is the audiometer. We can through this audiometer we can produce sounds of different tones, so they can lead and we assess the air conduction and bony conduction for this. So the bony we check bony conduction as well as the air conduction. If we there is also a vibrator in this apparatus, through which we can check the bony conduction. This is help to check the air conduction. Earphone is there. So audiometry, it comes from a Latin word, that is audire, which means to hear, and metria, which means to measure. So we measure the hearing loss. Is a branch of audiology and is the science of measuring hearing acuity for the variation in sound intensity and frequency. Now, an audiometer is the device used to produce sound of varying intensity and frequency. I told you this. This is the instrument or audiometer, and this is the earphone. Now this is the bone oscillator to test the bone conduction. So by this we check the bony conduction, and by this we check the air conduction threshold. Now pure tone audiometry is of different types. One is pure tone audiometry, other is speech audiometry, Bexley audiometry. You should know the names of these audiometry. You should not go in detail, but you should know the pure tone audiometry. And there is another type of audiometry is that is the impedance audiometry. In pure tone audiometry, a pure tone is we expose the person who is complaining on the hearing loss. We expose the person to a sound which is of pure tone, that is it contains a single frequency, single specific frequency of no other frequency is there. So pure tone is a tone having a single specific frequency. The frequency of the tone is determined by the rate of speed at which the sound source is vibrates, that is 125 250 hertz. That is a pure tone. No other tone is mixed. Now pure tone audiometry is the use of pure tones to assess an individual's hearing, and we assess by this method the individual hearing. So the results of this testing are plotted on the audiogram. We make a graph of our findings, and that graph is known by the name of audiogram. Now pure tones are generated by an audiometer and presented to the patient via headphones, or in some cases through the loudspeakers. So can be air conduction audiometry or bone conduction audiometry. These are the different types of audiometry once again. Now pure tone audiometry procedure, the audiologist present pure tones of one frequency to the patient initially at an intensity level that it is assumed they can hear quite well. So first we will expose the person with the pure tones which we think he or she can listen to the sound well. The intensity or loudness of the tone is decreased in 10 to 15 decibel steps. So we increase or decrease from this level to, that is the basal level, to by 10 to 15 decibel. This is continued with tones being presented for 1 to 2 seconds until the patient no longer responds. So this is the end point of the audiometry. Then the intensity is then raised in 5 decibel steps until the patient responds, decreased again and increased again in 5 decibel steps until the patient responds. This is how we are performing this test. This is the procedure. How do we do? You will learn this procedure in your pre-final year, that is in detail also. So this is the physiology. You have to study it here also. So this lowest audible intensity is defined as the patient's threshold for the particular frequency and is marked as such on the audiogram. So the pure tone at which the person is just able to listen to the voice is called as the threshold for that particular frequency. This is the image showing a technician performing the audiometry procedure, and this is the audiometry test, and the patient who is suffering from hearing loss is wearing this headphone and is tested for this. This is how we do. This is soundproof room, and the technician sits outside here. Now this kind of diagram is obtained, that is one is these cross indicate air conduction or bone conduction depending upon how you select, and these dots they refer to the one refers to the air conduction and other refers to the bony conduction. Normally there is no gap. This is the level where the 0 decibel where a normal person hears the voice, different sounds at this level, and normally there is no airborne gap is there. So these are this side shows the frequency levels. We test the person for 250, 500, 1000, 2000, 4000, these frequencies. These are the pure tones, and normally then we reduce, like we think that the person can listen to the voice or sound. We check first air conduction or bony conduction, then we plot our findings on this graph, and this is called as audiogram. This is another diagram showing, this is given in your Guyton also. This cross shows the air conduction, and these stars they show the bony conduction. This is this x-axis shows the different frequency, and this is the normal finding of normal person. First at like if you see that at a frequency of 1 they have tested the air conduction, so person was able to listen at the level of 10 decibel, and then the frequency was increased to 250 hertz, and then person can was able to listen at this level, and so we detect the hearing loss by plotting these so this suggests the sensory neural impairment, and this suggests the conductive type of hearing loss. So again you can see different these are the marks where the patient has given the response for air conduction and bony conduction. So we plot, and through by observing this audiogram the doctors give you diagnosis whether the person is suffering from conductive loss or sensory neural loss. The difference between these two tells you about the degree of hearing loss. Another test in this category is tympanometry. You should know the name of this test only. So tympanometry is an examination used to test the condition of the middle ear and mobility of the eardrum and the conduction bones by creating variation of air pressure in the ear canal. So we vary the air pressure in the ear canal, and we check the mobility of the eardrum, that is the tympanic membrane in this test. So in evaluating hearing loss, tympanometry permits a distinction between sensory neural and conductive hearing loss when evaluation is not apparent via Weber's or Raynaud's test. So sometimes we are confused whether the patient is suffering from sensory type of hearing loss or conductive type of hearing loss. Then we perform this test, that is the tympanometry, and we assess by this test whether a person is suffering from sensory neural or conductive hearing loss. Next test was otoacoustic emission. So they are the low intensity sounds produced by the outer hair cells of a normal cochlea. So the normal cochlea, they produce low intensity sound which are produced by the outer hair cells. So these can be elicited by very sensitive microphone which are placed in external ear or external auditory canal. So we place a microphone and we can pick those sounds by these microphones. So these are the sounds low intensity sound, these can be picked up by the microphone which is placed in the ear external auditory canal. And if these hair cells, outer hair cells are damaged, then these are absent. So they serve to test the cochlear function. So through these autoacoustic emission we check the cochlear functioning. Now uses of autoacoustic emissions are it is used as a screening test for neonates, whether the sometimes parents comes that our kid is not it do not respond to the sounds of the rattler, so they are very worried, so they comes to the ENT specialist or audiologist, and they perform this test whether the neonate in which it is very difficult to know about the hearing loss. Then we perform these tests. So it distinguish cochlear and retrocochlear hearing loss. Now to test hearing in mentally challenged and uncooperative individuals after sedation. So we can sedate uncooperative patients and mentally challenged patient, then we can check the this hearing loss by performing this test. Now electrocochleography is another test. It measures the electrical potential arising in the cochlea and eighth nerve in response to auditory stimuli within first 5 milliseconds. So we give auditory stimuli to a subject by placing some phones or earphones or electrodes. Then within 5 milliseconds the electric potentials are generated in the cochlea and the eighth nerve, and these electric potentials are recorded within 5 milliseconds. So response is in the form of cochlear microphonics, summation potential and action potential, and this is how we perform this electrocochleography. Now the last test in the assessment of hearing is brainstem evoked response audiometry. So or brainstem auditory evoked response or auditory brainstem response is all these terms are one and same thing. So what happens when the sound waves they stimulate the hair cells, they produce generator potential in the hair cells, and when depending upon the generator potential, when the neurons in the spiral ganglia or in the auditory pathway, that is the first order neuron, second order neuron, third order neuron, they are stimulated, then action potentials are generated, and these action potentials they are we place some electrodes on ears and on the vertex of the head, then depending upon these traveling of action potential, they generate these waves. So we can check whether the person is the problem is lying at the level of spiral ganglia, or it is lying at the level of proximal auditory nerve or the cochlear nucleus, or it is lying at the level of ventral cochlear nucleus in the pons or inferior lateral lemniscus. So these are the waves generated 1, 2, 3. These are the waves accordingly. This wave is generated at the level of spiral ganglia. This wave is generated at the level of proximal auditory nerve, and the third nerve is generated at the ventral cochlear nucleus, and fourth is inferior lateral lemniscus. Fifth is generated at the level of lateral lemniscus in the lower midbrain. So these are the waves which are important. Similarly, sixth and seventh wave are also generated. So the deformities in waves or absence of wave, they tell you about whether the person is suffering hearing loss at which level, whether hearing loss is lying at the level of pons or it is lying at the level of cochlea. So a person who dodges all the tests, that is the audiometry, tuning fork test, tympanometry, the person cannot, the malinger who dodges all the tests, he or she cannot dodge this test, and because this is based on the electrical impulses, and we can so by performing this test we can assess whether the person is a malinger or he or she is suffering with the hearing loss. So this is one important aspect of the BERA, and it also tells you about the hearing loss in kids. So this is the importance of this brainstem evoked response audiometry. So you should know a little about it, so you can go through your books and again read it. You can perform this test at your homes if you have your tuning forks with you. So perform this test well and go through your books. Again, I'm saying time and again, I may be wrong in some part of my lecture, but books are never wrong. Go through your books. Thanks. If there are any queries, then please you can text me. I'll try to solve your problems. Thank you very much.